Hello, Master Gidu Yuwat. This is Africa 54, and here's what's coming up. Emergency workers in Libya continue to dig through the wreckage caused by a storm that has left at least 10,000 people unaccounted for. Morocco Quake survivors struggle in makeshift shelters even as aid response speeds up. And in our technology report, a self-taught professional roller skater from Zambia is riding high in the roller skating world. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. The horror of the flooding tragedy in Libya is still coming into focus as the death toll has reached more than 5,000, and that number is expected to rise further in the eastern city of Derna, where flooding has caused massive devastation, according to a local health official. Authorities are struggling to get aid to the coastal city after the waters washed away most access roads. The United Nations Migration Agency says that more than 30,000 people are now homeless due to the destruction. Local rescue teams and aid workers who have managed to reach Derna continue to search for bodies on Wednesday, but entire neighborhoods were swept away or crumbled under the deluge of rainwater. One aid worker from Benghazi says, quote, "Bodies are everywhere, inside houses, in the streets, at sea. Wherever you go, you find dead men, women, and children." For more insight on the aftermath of the Libya floods, VOA's Paul Ndiho spoke via Skype with Saleh Sarar, a journalist based in eastern Libya.
What we call the disaster in the eastern part of Libya is great, because the city of Derna is about 200 kilometers from the city of Benghazi. And the city is affected by the hurricane and by the water. So a lot of people died. But up to now, there are no exact number or exact figures about how many people died. But as far as we know, there are thousands of people died. Not hundreds, not tens, not hundreds. Thousands of people died in the city of Derna. And the rescue missions, they are not saying, still, they are not talking about the exact figures of the people who died.
You said a lot of international aid agencies are also coming to your rescue. Are you able to maybe give us a sense of what has been done on the ground?
All the roads are closed, are damaged. So there's still people and people of Libya, they are still trying to find ways how the missions come to the city, because no one, mostly they are talking about the roads which are damaged from the hurricanes. But as far as we know, as far as we hear that Italy is sending its troops to help the city. Also Egypt, which is very near. Egypt is very near to Derna. They also help Tunisia, Algeria. They send the airplanes to the city of Tobruk, which is near Derna. As far as we know, many countries are sending their assistance and their equipment to move the debris and to help the people and people who are surviving or the dead. They are trying to help the country. Most people are appealing to the governments, to the two governments, to be united and to make their possible help.
Saleh, you bring up a very good point. You said that people are appealing to the two governments to be united. What's the likelihood that is going to happen, considering that these two rival factions have been fighting each other?
The disaster helped the two governments to respond to the appeal of the people to be united, because the government of the western part of Libya, they send money and equipment and missions to to help their brothers in the eastern part, because some people in the western part, they announced that they opened their houses and their farms and their buildings to the people in the eastern part who want to join them and want to flee the floods. So this is a very good chance.
That was Saleh Saral, a journalist based in eastern Libya, speaking to VOA's Paul Ndiho. Elsewhere in North Africa, Moroccan rescue workers have been joined by international responders from Spain, the United Kingdom, the United Arab Emirates and Qatar as they feverishly try to reach remote mountains areas that are buried under dust from rubble from Friday's earthquake. First responders are working around the clock trying to dig through the wreckage in search of any signs of life. At this hour, the death toll from the quake has risen to nearly 3,000. Many survivors are struggling in makeshift shelters. The situation is most desperate for the people in remote areas cut off by landslides triggered by the earthquake that blocked access roads. Relief efforts are being stepped up with tent camps and distribution of food and water. The number of people injured more than doubled to over 5,500 according to state television. The quake was Morocco's deadliest since 1960 and its most powerful in more than a century. Morocco so far has not accepted offers of aid from Italy, Belgium, France and Germany. Pope Francis on Wednesday expressed his sorrow for the people in Libya and Morocco.
Mio pensiero va alle popolazioni della Libia.
My thoughts go out to the people of Libya, hit by violent rains that triggered floods and caused numerous deaths and injuries as well as extensive damage. I invite you to join me in my prayers for those who have lost their lives, their families and the displaced. Do not forget to express your solidarity with these brothers and sisters so tried by this calamity. And my thoughts also go out to the noble Moroccan people who have suffered after the earthquake. Let us pray for Morocco, for its inhabitants, that the Lord will give them the strength to recover after this terrible event.
The pontiff made his remarks on Wednesday to faithfuls gathered in St. Peter's Square in Vatican City. Now for more on the dual crisis in Libya and Morocco, I'm joined from here in Washington by William Lawrence, a professor of political science and international affairs at American University School of International Service. He also served as a senior diplomat at the U.S. embassies in Libya and Morocco. William, welcome to Africa 54.
Nice to be here.
Now let's start with Libya. What do you do with a crisis of this magnitude?
Well, normally about 95% of what you do has to happen before the disaster. And the big problem in Derna and the environs is they didn't do most of that. So you kind of have to make it up as you go. There are many pieces to a disaster like this. First of all, there are collapsed infrastructures that have to be replaced. There was no working hospital in Derna. So, for example, they had to take over a building and turn the rooms into hospital rooms. I mean, that's how weak the infrastructure was in Derna for reasons that go back decades in Libya and Gaddafi's feud with the town and that sort of thing. That you have to coordinate these international groups coming in. I think 2 of the 7 access roads to Derna are open or open enough to get people in, but I was in discussions yesterday about sea access and how to get things in through the sea. Libyans are resilient. They're banding together and doing what they can doing. And the nature of a flood is different from an earthquake, which we'll get to in a minute. But usually in an earthquake, you have all kinds of complicated injuries that happen and things that go on, risks that go on, aftershocks for weeks and weeks. Whereas in a flood, usually what happens is that initial disaster, but then not as much afterwards that you have to deal with. Mm-hmm. Now, the death toll, as you were introducing, went up officially to 6,000. We have 10,000 people missing, and we have a lot of work to do to just deal with the death and destruction and the injuries that we will have, which again won't be as extensive as Morocco, but will have to be dealt with, and then a massive recreation of infrastructure project. Mm-hmm. And I expect in both disasters, there's going to have to be a relocation of populations rather than just rebuilding. And if I can just add one more point, communications is key. and communications infrastructure in Libya is just not there. So they're going to have to get that up to, get that up and going to communicate to the people what they need to do.
Now, let's turn to Morocco, where the quake has killed so many people, wiped entire villages. What's next for survivors? So just 50 kilometers from the epicenter, you have 800 villages. We've been mapping this in our relief efforts of the organizations I'm working with, many of which are still inaccessible. So the first thing you have to do is gain access to these incredibly remote villages, many of which already didn't have running water and electricity and didn't have good communications. And now that's been completely knocked out. So the Moroccan army and population has been valiantly trying to do things, but the magnitude of this spread over these 800 villages within 50 kilometers, and we have deaths out to 200 kilometers. Then you're talking about thousands of villages that need to be accessed and need food, water, shelter, and again, getting back to the Libya thing, relocation of populations. Where do you put them? Down in cities and hotels and adjacent towns. There's a huge humanitarian logistical problem that needs to go on here. Both countries need to take in a lot more international assistance. Well, I was going to still ask another question, but we're running out of time. I wonder why Morocco turned down some of the country's aid. But okay, maybe a quick question to that. Can you answer that? Why do you think they turned it down?
So the short answer is Morocco has prickly relationships with a number of countries like Algeria and France, and they accepted aid from countries that they have better relations with right now. But Morocco needs and has an opportunity to improve its political relationships by accepting aid from those countries. So hopefully they'll change that decision in very short time.
William, many thanks. William Lawrence is a professor of political science and international affairs at American University School of International Service, and he also served as a senior diplomat at the U.S. embassies in Libya and Morocco. The 26th Annual African Studies and Research Forum is set to begin Wednesday in Washington to honor those who are making immense contributions to the continent. The forum brings together numerous African scholars from the continent to discuss issues that affect Africa and honor those who are excelling in various fields. For more on the event, I'm joined by Abdul Karim Bangura, a professor at American University's Center for Global Peace, USA, and organizer of the forum. Professor, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you.
I can hardly hear you, and you are kind of hidden a little bit. But tell us, what's the objective really of this forum?
The objective of the forum is to continue a tradition, an African tradition, that traces back to ancient Kemet, Egypt. From the 4th dynasty BC to 2498 BC, and the scribes would meet once a year to compare notes, to share best practices on how to represent the story, the history of ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, and how to write about not only the pharaohs but also situations, things about their great kingdom. And this is our 26th year that we are doing our annual conference, and we do honor every year scholars or others in other professions that have contributed significantly to increase the knowledge base of others
Professor,
about Africa and its diaspora.
So tell us who is being honored. Who is being honored this year and why?
Mwalimu Dr. Shakasali, who used to be with you wonderful folks at Voice of America, Straight Talk Africa, for his significant contribution to knowledge about Africa. Because remember, when many of us came to this country, Africa was supposed to be just this jungle where people live on trees and our pets are lions, and all the other stereotypes that went with it. It was people like Shekasali that began to tell the African story, not only for audiences here in the US, but also in Africa. And so we believe that he is well deserving in being honored on this. The other person is Queen Marian Rakashamu, who an African American, graduated for Spelman with both a bachelor's and master's degree in library science, married to the Prince Shamu, and decided to leave everything that she had here, even with properties and all kind of things her father and mother bequeathed her as they passed away. Decided to go to Zimbabwe to join her husband in the revolutionary struggle. Mm-hmm. And after she served in Zimbabwe for many, many years, and later came back to the United States, again continued to educate both Africans in the diaspora and Africans from the motherlands at Bowie State University.
Abdul, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. We had some technical issues here, but we'll follow up with what happens in the forum. Thank you so much. Abdul Karim Bangura is a professor at American University's Center for Global Peace, USA, and organizer of the African Studies and Research Forum. Still to come, U.S. lawmakers are set to launch an impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. We'll be right back.
On the next Straight Talk Africa, disinformation and propaganda seem to be plaguing the African continent as China and Russia are vying to expand their influence. What can the citizens do to get to the truth? Is disinformation a threat to democracy? Join our experts for an in-depth analysis on the next Straight Talk Africa.
The first Africa Climate Summit held in Kenya has concluded with the Nairobi Declaration calling for world leaders to ensure large-scale financing for climate-related investments and debt relief. On this week's episode of Our Voices, we will look at African women's role in protecting their environment and ask experts for ways their voices are represented in the global fight against climate change. Join the conversation each week right here on Our Voices.
In other news, Malawian President Lazarus Chakwera is launching a large-scale crop production initiative known as Mega Farms that it's aimed at boosting the country's agricultural-based economy and help end persistent food shortages. According to a recent report from the Famine Early Warning Systems Network, 4.4 million Malawians are facing food shortages. Newly re-elected Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa has sworn in a new cabinet, including one of his sons, David Kudakwashe Mnangagwa, as Deputy Finance Minister and his nephew, Tongai Mnangagwa, as Deputy Tourism Minister. Both moves are being criticized by the opposition. And the Botswana government is responding to criticism from an anti-hunting activist saying the number of elephants legally killed by hunters since the lifting of a hunting ban in 2019 is negligible. South Africa-based activist Adam Cruz is pushing for a ban on trophy hunting and says the killing of elephants and other large animals threatens Botswana's wildlife. U.S. Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy has announced that lawmakers will launch an impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden, advancing an investigation concerning allegations Biden benefited from his son Hunter's foreign business dealings. VOA's congressional correspondent Catherine Gibson reports from Capitol Hill.
After months of investigations, House Republican committees will now pursue an impeachment inquiry into U.S. President Joe Biden.
Through our investigations, we have found that President Biden did lie to the American people about his own knowledge of his family's foreign business dealings.
McCarthy's announcement comes after months of pressure from House conservatives.
And I think that any other citizen that had stacked up against him what the president had stacked up against him right now would already be in court.
Democrats say Republicans have failed to turn up any evidence of Biden's supposed wrongdoing after months of investigation, in which tens of thousands of documents were turned over to investigators.
The impeachment inquiry is absurd. The American people want us to do something that will make their lives better, not go off on these chases and witch hunts.
Republicans hold a very slim majority in the U.S. House of Representatives, with just a 5-seat majority over Democrats.
I think it's also possible that those impeachment articles may never reach the Senate. With a slim majority, it's not clear that Republicans can get it across the finish line. They certainly cannot count on any support from Democrats. And so they really have to hold together every one of their members. And if they lose just 5 of them, they won't be able to pass it.
Some Republicans have expressed concern about pursuing an impeachment inquiry heading into the 2024 election year. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who has said in the past that impeachments should be a rare process, declined comment Tuesday.
We got our hands full here trying to get through the appropriations process.
The announcement of the inquiry also sets up a showdown between Capitol Hill and the White House, as lawmakers must strike a deal with Biden to keep the government open past a September 30th funding deadline. If there is a government shutdown, House committees would be unable to work on an impeachment inquiry. Catherine Gibson, VOA News.
Onija Zani, a self-taught professional roller skater from Lusaka, Zambia, is making waves in the roller skating world despite the challenges of skating on the city streets. He is using innovative technology to bring this sport to life. Africa 54 technology correspondent Paul Ndiho is here to tell us more about this. Paul.
Thank you, Esther. Onija's skills have made him an internet star and has represented Zambia in international competitions. He uses his expertise to train roller skaters in Zambia and beyond. For more, I'm joined by Onija Zani in the Zambian capital, Lusaka. It started out as a hobby for you going to school, but you've since turned this passion into a sport where you have signed up young people across the country. Bring us up to speed.
Ever since a friend of mine taught me how to skate, I've been striving to keep up with the skill and also practice with the same skill within my community. So every time after practicing or during practicing, there's always this attraction of the sport to bring people to join. So apart from that also, I've seen people wanting to be recruited in the skating business. And with that, I can say it has brought a lot of people, not only within Lusaka where I stay, but also people out of Lusaka in different other provinces. People who roller skate, they get in touch with me. I do help them with some videos, just to use them as a reference point for them to learn more about roller skating. And also link ups when they come within the capital city of Zambia in Lusaka. We have an opportunity to skate together.
What does it take to be a terrific roller skater?
As for me, I can say I've been skating for more than 19 years. So it's not something that it's gradual, or everyone who would hear my opinion would say it's difficult because they'll say I've been skating for a long time. But it is not that difficult. It is actually easy. It's not scary because people think of the falling part as the first element when they say roller skating, even skateboarding. So with that phobia, they tend to shy away and say, I don't want to learn anything that will hit me. We all know during any learning lesson, doesn't matter what sport it is, there are always challenges and there are always failures. You fall, you will have challenges and problems at some point, which I'm not saying that you actually cease to do the sport if you have all those fallings. They're just minor. Then afterwards, you eventually improve and progress. So on my part, until now, I would say I do for when I'm trying something way more extreme, but knowing that if I do not try that, I won't become a better roller skater. Same with my students, whom I teach in Zambia. They are good skaters, but with more having intrinsic motivation, they have managed to excel even way better than me.
How many people have you trained this far?
Let me approximate. So approximately now, say maybe 600 plus, because aside from me doing the club training with people within my community, I also do offer like private lessons. So for the private lessons, there are many. And over the years, which I was also using for the sake of my fundraising at school, by the University of Zambia. As you know, I was never accommodated there. I was roller skating, going and coming back. That was also part of my marketing, that people would see me of skating and therefore they want some lessons. And through that, I would divide my time during my education time with also my lesson time, that people would come for private lessons, and I would use that as a fundraising venture.
So if I hear you correctly, you've already inspired hundreds of young people across Zambia. And these are people who are doing it for fun and at a professional level.
True. I would say, yes, that's true. Because majority of them, they have improved their skills. Even the babies, the ones I teach, they were young when we were starting. But if you see how many years, about 5 years passed, they have been so good that they are even better than some of the big guys who are joining recently, and they've maintained their skills so abruptly.
Is this something where people pay a fee, or it's one of those things where you offer to the community?
With that, I would say it's divided into two sectors or two parts. So for the community part, I do not charge any amount from them. I don't charge them any amount. They actually come to my club and they learn for free. So far, openly, I would say there's a company called Six Light Media that have helped us to purchase, some outfits, some protectors, helmets, and also gloves, inclusive some roller skating shoes, which we normally now use on a daily basis to empower some of the kids, not only in the compound that I stay. There are like different other 6 compounds which I am running and influencing within Lusaka and also out of Lusaka.
Thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you so much for having me.
That was Onijan Zani speaking to us from the Zambian capital, Lusaka. That's today's Tech Report. Back to you, Esther.
All right, thanks, Paul. Be sure to join Paul Ndiho every Wednesday for another Tech Report right here. And with that, we say thank you for joining us on Africa 54. See you back tomorrow.